Hello, hello, hello. If this is your first time joining, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are coming back and you have been here before, welcome back. Hello, everyone, and welcome back or welcome to Free Grant Education Friday. I am Crystal Petry, grant writer and strategist. For over 15 years, I've been helping nonprofits, for profits, as well as entrepreneurs and organizations secure funding across federal, state, local, and even private foundations. Over the past several weeks, we've talked about why grants get rejected before they even get reviewed, how funders think and what they think, writing strong problem statements, building budgets that make sense, and understanding the shifting funding landscape in 2026 and beyond. Today, I am going to bring it all together just for you. Today, I am talking about the anatomy of a winning grant because strong grants are not random, they are structured. So, let's get into it. In this section for today, I'm going to walk you through the key sections every winning grant includes, what funders are actually looking for in each part of those key sections, and how these pieces work together just like a puzzle to complete a story, your story. This is where everything that we have been learning and discussing over the past several weeks, this is where it all starts to connect. Let's talk about the first key section. That is the executive summary. This is normally the first thing a funder sees, the executive summary. And sometimes, if I'm being honest, it's the only thing they read in detail. The executive summary is read word for word, line for line by the funder. And the reason they read the executive detail so intently is because your executive summary should answer who you are. Who are you? Who are you as a person? Who is your organization? What problem are you solving? Are you solving youth violence? Are you solving teenage pregnancy? Are you solving homelessness? What problem are you solving in your community? And what are you proposing? How are you going to fix youth violence? How are you going to fix teenage pregnancy? How are you going to fix homelessness in your community? And what are you asking for? How much money are you asking for? Your executive summary should answer all of these questions. And this is why funders read executive summaries in great detail. One mistake I see all the time with executive summaries, they are too vague and they're too long. Yes, funders will read the executive summary word for word, but they do not want to take 2 days to read the executive summary. Your executive summary needs to be clear, it needs to be concise, not long and drawn out. and it needs to be specific, not vague. When you are writing your executive summary, make sure that it is clear, make sure it is direct, and make sure that it is focused. Do not have your executive summary all over the place, talking about several different things. Keep your executive summary clear so that the funder understands it. Direct and focused. Here is a mind shift. When you are writing your executive summary, when you are finished with your executive summary, that I want you to start asking yourself. If someone only reads the executive summary, would they understand your entire proposal? Because that is the role of the executive summary. It sets the tone for everything else. Again, as you are writing your executive summary, once you finish your executive summary, ask yourself and be honest about it. If the funder only read the executive summary, would they understand your entire proposal? Or would it leave doubt for the funder? And as we have learned in our previous free grant education Fridays, funders with doubt is not a good thing. Let's talk about the method. This is your program plan. This is where you explain how you are going to solve the problem, whatever that problem is in your community. And I just gave you some examples earlier: youth violence, teenage pregnancy, maybe high school dropout, homelessness, whatever the community problem is that you want to fix, that you want to solve, that you want to reduce in your community, you explain how you are going to do that in the method. How are you solving the problem? This connects directly to your problem statement. If you do not know what the problem statement is, or maybe you have forgotten, go back, because I did an entire free grant education Friday just on the problem statement. So go back on my YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe and watch that section on the problem statement. I will also tag it up here so you could just click and watch it there. Your problem statement should clearly outline activities, timelines, who is responsible, and how participants are engaged. So let me go through each one of those. Activities. What activities are you going to implement to help solve the problem? Are you going to have mentorships? Are you going to have trainings? Are you going to hand out food? Are you going to hand out bags with toiletry items in it, like deodorant and lotion and moist wipes? Or are you going to set up after school activities? What activities are you going to do to help lessen or decrease the problem that you are trying to fix? The timeline. How long is this going to take? Is it going to take 6 months? Is it going to take 1 year? Is it going to take 5 years? Now, let me tell you about how funders think in this situation. Funders are not expecting for you to solve the world's problems in 6 months or a year. They are not expecting for you to solve your community or your neighborhood's problem in 1 year or 2 years. But they are expecting for some kind of change to happen within a specific time frame. So you have to give them a timeline on how long it's going to take for change to be seen and perhaps even felt. Who is responsible? This could be the scary part. Who is responsible for making sure that this plan actually happens? Who is responsible for making sure that the timeline is implemented? The activities are implemented. The volunteers are trained. Who is responsible for that? You have to put someone down. And how are participants engaged? How are the volunteers engaged? How are the school board members engaged? What about elected city officials? How are they engaged? The community has to be engaged in some kind of way, because whatever the problem is that you are fixing, you cannot fix it all by yourself. You will need help. And your method is where you explain who else is going to help your organization. Let's listen to a weak method sentence. We will provide services to the community. That's leaving me with some doubt. Number one, which is never good. Remember that. But it's also bringing up a ton of questions for me. And as we've discussed on every free grant education Friday, you do not want to leave the funder with doubt. You do not want to leave the funder with questions. This weak method statement is leaving me with questions. Let's listen to it one more time. We will provide services to the community. Just off the top of my head, what services? What community? How long? So many questions. Never a good thing when you leave the funder with questions. Listen to a strong method statement. We will implement a 12-month program serving 100 youth, including weekly mentorship sessions, monthly workshops, and quarterly evaluations. Now, can you see the difference? Can you even feel the difference? That strong method sentence is clear, it's structured, and it's realistic. Let me take a moment here to talk about realistic. Whenever you are creating your program plan, your method, make sure that the activities that you want to implement are realistic. Don't try to embellish. Don't try to make them feel or seem more grand than they actually are, because funders can tell when you embellish. Funders can tell when it's not realistic. If it's not realistic, chances are it's not funded. Make sure that your program plan is realistic for you and your organization. Remember, funders are looking for execution, not ideas. Funders will fund execution. They will not fund ideas, because ideas a lot of times never happen. But if you have a plan in place, that is fundable. Let's talk about evaluation. And again, thank you all for joining me on this free grant education Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching and listening and learning. I appreciate you so, so much. Let's talk about the third key section, and that is evaluation. This is where many people fall short. Funders want to know, how will you measure success? For example, if a funder gives you $50,000, they want a return on their investment. And that's exactly what this is. If your execution is funded, that's an investment by the funder. They want a return on their investment. They want to see success. They want to feel success. They want positive change to take place. This is where your evaluation comes in. Your evaluation will need clear outcomes, measurable metrics, and a tracking process. Your evaluation has to have all three of those for it to be successful, for it to be fundable. Okay, let's listen to a weak evaluation statement. We will measure success through feedback. Feedback? What kind of success? How long is it going to take for you to measure? These are just questions off the top of my head. Weak. Now let's listen to a strong evaluation statement. We will track program success through attendance rates, participant surveys, and a 20% reduction in targeted risk behaviors over 12 months. That strong evaluation has clear outcomes, measurable metrics, and a tracking process. It leaves no questions. It leaves no doubt. And because it leaves no questions, because it leaves no doubt, the odds of it being funded increase drastically. Let me tell you, if you cannot measure success, if you cannot measure change, funders cannot justify funding it. Because remember, they want a return on their investment. And you have to be able to show them the return on their investment. Let's talk about our fourth key section. That is sustainability. This is a question I have seen time and time again. I've been writing grants. I've been a grant writer, a grant strategist for over 15 years. Not to age myself, but every time, this is the question. What happens after the funding ends? Because funders do not want to fund something that will end once their funding is done. If they give you funding for 1 year and the program ends after that 1 year, that is not a good return on the investment. If the success ends after that 1 year, that is not a good return on the investment. This question, what happens after our funding ends, has been on, I try not to use absolute words, but I feel like every RFP, request for a proposal, that I have written and read and submitted has this question. Here is a weak sustainability statement. We will seek additional funding. That's not a plan. Where are you going to seek additional funding? How are you going to seek additional funding? When are you going to start seeking additional funding? This is not a plan. Here is a strong sustainability statement. We will sustain the program through a combination of diversified funding, community partnerships, and earned revenue strategies. There you go. There you go. That is how the program will be sustained once the funding is finished. What this strong sustainability statement shows, it shows long-term thinking, it shows responsibility, it shows stability. That's what your sustainability plan should show and should cover, because you will get this sentence. You will get what happens after our funding ends. It's there. So make sure you are prepared for that. Funders want to invest in something that continues, not something that stops. Let me break down an example of a case study. Make sure you are looking for clear information. Make sure you are looking for direct information. Make sure that you are listening for specific information as we go through this hypothetical case study. The executive summary. XYZ organization is seeking $250,000 to implement a 12-month youth violence prevention program serving 150 at-risk youth. Over the past 3 years, youth-related incidents have increased by 22% in targeted neighborhoods, highlighting a critical need for structured intervention. Through mentorship, weekly skill building workshops, and community engagement, this program will reduce risk behaviors and improve long-term outcomes for participating youth. Did you hear how clear that was? Did you hear how direct that was? Did you see how specific the executive summary was about the problem and the solution? Let's move on to our method. This is our program plan. XYZ organization will implement a 12-month program serving 150 youth ages 12 to 18. Participants will engage in weekly mentorship sessions, monthly life skills workshops, and quarterly community service projects. A program director will oversee implementation, supported by 2 full-time staff and trained volunteers. Recruitment will occur through school and community partnerships, with services delivered at 2 accessible community locations. Did you hear how detailed that program structure was? Did you hear the timeline? Did you hear who was responsible? All of that is needed for a successful method plan. Let's move on to evaluation. Program success will be measured through a combination of attendance tracking, participant surveys, and behavioral assessments. The program aims to achieve a 20% reduction in targeted risk behaviors and a 75% program completion rate. Data will be collected monthly and reviewed quarterly to assess progress and inform program adjustments. Did you hear the defined outcomes in that evaluation? Did you hear the measurable data points in that evaluation? You need all of it to write a successful evaluation. Let's talk about sustainability. To ensure long-term sustainability, XYZ organization will leverage a diversified funding strategy that includes private foundation grants, corporate partnerships, and individual donor engagement. In addition, the organization will build strategic community partnerships to share resources and reduce operational cost. By year two, portions of the program will be supported through earned revenue and recurring donor contributions. This is a realistic plan that did not rely on one funding source. And if you tuned in to Free Grant Education Fridays last Friday, you remember us talking about do not put all of your eggs in one basket in life, but also in grants. Make sure your grants, make sure your funding is diversified. What made all of these sections strong? Every section supported the next section. Nothing felt disconnected. It all told one complete story. Here's the problem. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we'll measure it. Here's how we will continue. That makes for a complete grant proposal, and that is what funders are looking for. Now, you know, I love to leave you with questions to think about, to ponder, to sit on, to brainstorm. Me and my questions, right? Every Friday. Now, I want you to think about the following questions. Does your proposal feel like one complete story? And ask you, as you are asking yourself these questions, make sure you are honest. Does your proposal feel like one complete story? Are your outcomes clearly defined and measurable? If someone read your grant from start to finish, would everything connect just like a puzzle? Because strong grants are not just written, they are structured. And this is something that I have discussed from the very first Free Grant Education Friday until today, and something I will continue to discuss on our Free Grant Education Fridays. If you have been following these sessions, and even if you are new to these sessions, these Free Grant Education Fridays, whether you have been here, whether you are new here, thank you. First of all, thank you, thank you. But I hope that you are starting to see how all of this is coming together, how the problem statement comes together, the evaluation, the executive summary, the budget narrative, all of it should come together. This is not just about writing grants, not for me. That is not why I am doing this Free Grant Education Friday. I am doing it because I want you to be successful in writing grants. I want you to be successful in receiving funding. I want your organization to be successful. I want your organization, whether that's a nonprofit, a for-profit, to make change in your community for the better. It's about building something that makes sense from beginning to end. And if you want to walk through a real grant step by step, if you want to have your questions answered in real time and speak directly to me in real time, if you want to complete your problem statement to your budget, to your full grant proposal, you can do that. On May 7th, I am hosting a virtual grant writing workshop titled Funding Success Blueprint. Plan, write, and win grants like a pro. During this virtual boot camp, we will build your grant together. So you're not guessing, you're not Googling, you're not wondering, you're not getting frustrated. You're building something with clarity and structure. You can sign up for this virtual grant workshop on my website, CAPETRYLLC.com. There are limited spots because I want to make sure that everyone that registers, everyone that joins, is able to ask questions, is able to be engaged, is able to participate. So there is only a limited amount of spots. Register today for my virtual grant workshop, Funding Success Blueprint. Plan, write, and win grants like a pro. Sign up right now on my website, CAPETRYLLC.com. Again, thank you so much for joining me on this Friday. Thank you for listening. Thank you for learning. And I will see you again next Friday.